What a glorious feeling, I'm happy again. I'm laughing at clouds so dark up above.
Hey everybody, here we are 4 years later. This thing's finally gonna happen. So let's go ahead and bring you up to speed with a little montage. So when I finally decided that this is going to be the year that I'm going to do it, I tried to find an event, and I figured Camp Hollywood was the most logical home base that I could do that at, big event with a big stage. So I actually looked up on the website to see what themes might work for this, and lo and behold, the Saturday night was Singin' in the Rain night. I debated on whether or not to put it on social media, because really that leaves me vulnerable and open to criticism, but that's how I started, so that's what I'm going to do, and I just hope I don't annoy everybody. So I've got 5 weeks to put this whole thing together, and not to mention also put together a classic routine for ILHC in Camp Hollywood, so I'm pretty much going to be living at Atomic Ballroom.
5, 6, 7, and 8. A 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4. A 5 and a 6 and a 7, 8.
One of my big challenges with the routine is that the entire thing goes to the right. Everything goes this direction. So I have to figure out on a stage setting how to weave around to make it have any sort of sense at all. So I decided to have the taps dubbed in the music like they do in the movie. Otherwise I would just never be able to get the dance quality out of that if I'm trying to make the sounds. So I know there's no way I could do this whole thing by myself. So thankfully I have a lot of great talented friends that I can bring in and help me out on the project.
Nick asked me to help in several of the rehearsals, refining some of the tap movement and sort of the overall technical aspects of the piece. The thing that struck me most, that made me realize that this is probably going to work, is that Nick displayed that the focus and the relentless attention to detail that you have to have if you're going to pull something like this off. If there was a particular tap step that wasn't working, Nick was all too willing to go back and just run that step over and over and over again for a long time, and that's what it takes.
For those that know me know I'm a hardcore perfectionist, so it could work for you or against you. But going into this project, like the first thing with the practice is breaking everything down. I want to get everything perfect and do all the things right away, but really I got frustrated, and so I had to kind of pull back and decide to layer everything. So the first thing I would do is just go in and work on the choreography itself, of just getting the right steps, knowing what the tap sounds are supposed to be, and then little by little starting to get the actual Gene Kelly movement and layering it from there, because otherwise I would just go crazy. Quite honestly, it's a really frustrating process to try to go through this recreation thing, because you're not dancing like you're trying to dance like this other person, and that idea of like getting down low and how he moves and trying to make every little thing perfect. And the problem is every time I go and see the video, I see all the little imperfections, and so it's never quite right. It's never what I want it to be or what I think it should be, and it's never good enough.
Nick's not the sort of person that's going to just say, well, that's close enough, no one's going to notice. He'll notice, because he knows the piece backwards and forwards. He knows every little tick, and he will want to make sure that he gets all of those things right.
Seriously, around and looking up the entire time is really hard.
Gene Kelly uses an umbrella in the Singin' in the Rain number, and as anybody who has ever performed with any kind of a prop, whether it's a hat or a cane or whatever, props are difficult to deal with, and they don't always cooperate.
Umbrellas are the bane of my existence. First of all, the umbrella tricks on their own aren't that bad, but with the dancing is really difficult, and dropping them and cursing them all the time in practice.
One thing I definitely learned is that you have to point the umbrella slightly into the turn, otherwise this happens.
Also, I'm running through umbrellas like no other. So I had this nice vintage umbrella that was great, and I used a different umbrella for practice. And of course, the vintage umbrella breaks. Now, of course, I'm running through umbrellas like hotcakes. So what's the final count of umbrellas? We'll find out. So the lamppost. This is an issue I've been having for the last 4 years, debating on how to get a portable lamppost on a dance floor that won't ruin it, and something I can actually jump up onto that won't topple or will actually hold a big dude. So I finally saw this clip of this pole dancer doing a Singin' in the Rain type of routine, and I thought, perfect, I'll just get a portable pole dancing pole. Who knew? The answer to all my problems was a stripper pole. So I decided to sing live because I can, and it'd be weird to lip sync and mimic the tap sounds.
A lot of what Nick's going to have to do in this routine is have this vocal quality that is not quite musical theater and not quite jazz singer and not quite crooner, but something kind of naturally in between.
So one of my biggest challenges has been to not project, which I'm used to on a stage. And when you're in this huge room, you want to project to everybody, but you do have a mic.
Nick has a musical theater background, so even though Gene Kelly's not singing in a musical theater voice, if Nick encounters some nerves or he's thinking about the umbrella, if he's not thinking of actually singing that natural kind of middle ground voice, he may sing in that more musical theater style or even dip into the crooner style that he likes to do with his pack rat singing.
Another challenge for me was breathing. First of all, trying to get relaxed enough to get the right sound, but also walking around doing all the choreography and all the umbrella stuff, trying to breathe from the right place, while doing so was not easy at all.
So I gave him a couple points in the music to think of, and specifically it was the bump bump, I'm happy again.
I'm happy again.
Of hitting that, because how he sounded when he would sing that line was just so perfectly in character that I wanted the whole piece to sound like that, because in that moment he was Gene Kelly.
I've got 2 weeks until the performance. I've been working for the last 3 weeks non-stop on the choreography, but now is actually the time where I actually did start to work on the character and the performance of it, which is actually proving to be the hardest part.
In the film, of course, Gene Kelly is actually singing in the rain. There's actual rain falling down on the set, and unless someone pulls the fire alarm when he's performing it, that's probably not going to be something that he has. So he's going to need to use acting skills to portray the presence of rain, the presence of puddles on the street, in order to get the audience to buy into the number.
I have to try to convince an audience that I'm completely in love, happy, I'm not focusing on the choreography or anything at all. Really, unless I fully submerge into the character and into the feelings of what I need to exude, nobody's really going to believe it. And in order to do that, I have to actually become completely vulnerable, which for pretty much the entire world that knows me knows I am terrible at. And that's probably what really held me back when I was doing theater early on, which is I never fully committed to that character, that vulnerability. It really is a difficult process, and I'm finding that I have to process a lot of different emotions that I didn't think I would. It's not just doing a routine. Now it's becoming a part of that person.
If there's a part of his brain that's too focused on the technical aspects, the performance of it, the carefree Joe that just fell in love, that may flicker and fade in the moment of performance. And likewise, if he's too caught up in the acting, he runs the risk of compromising some of the technical aspects.
Before every run through, I would breathe, find my breath, look up to the sky like the sun shining down on you. You don't have a care in the world, and just find that place where you're in love. It's Camp Hollywood day of. This day was actually freaking nuts. So I had a full class load, which is terrible for your voice. I was running around judging, having to do floor trials. The only day I actually get to do floor trials for this whole thing, which was a very narrow window. And I actually still had to compete and showcase. So I was really just kind of running around crazy-like, and I actually was getting very anxious, and I don't really get that way very often. So when it came to the floor trials and actually performance time, I had Peter behind the scenes helping me out with mic, costume, and everything. And I also had Lauren on the other side working with the sound guy, trying to adjust levels and volumes. All I had to do performance time was just focus on breathing and working, and I was trying to avoid the craziness and get into my place of zen happiness with all of this going on, which was very trying. It's showtime. Here we go.